Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's Dr. Angela Cudger, founder of Legacy Holistic Health Institute and licensed metaphysician. In today's video, we're going to be talking about my ayahuasca trip. And I'm just going to be answering some questions that I get a lot when it comes to ayahuasca and plant-based medicines, the whole kind of gambit, right? That I can fit in 10 minutes. Okay, so this is going to be short. But for those of you who might want a longer extended edition of this, I will be adding plant-based medical systems to the masterclass membership that is pinned in the comments below. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for stopping by. This channel is dedicated to the health, wellness, and spiritual evolution of women over 40. If you're not a woman or you happen to not be over 40 or you might be under 40, it's okay. You can still use this content to give to someone else, or you can use it to learn learn from it for yourself as well. And for those of you who are returning to the channel, you know I love you. Thank you so much for your likes, your shares, and your subscriptions, and for keeping your notifications turned on so that you can begin to be a huge part of this conscious community. All day long in the month of December, I'm going to be dropping videos nightly at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So quite a bit of content is going to be coming out in December. In addition to that, this is the month of perpetual giving, and you will be receiving the ability to be entered to win prizes for the month of December. And so every time you like or comment, or like and comment together on a video on this channel, your name goes into a drawing at any point in December. I will draw names and give prizes on December 15th as well as December 31st, since I'm in the gift giving mood. And I might even do more than that. So I know I'm going to at least do 2 drawings. I might do even more. All right. So comment and like the videos. And of course, you must subscribe to the channel as well. Let's jump into the content. So when it comes to ayahuasca, the first thing to do is to understand what it is. A lot of people think that they know what ayahuasca is, but not really. So ayahuasca is comprised of 2 different plants, and these plants are called ayahuasca and chacruna, right? So the ayahuasca plant and the chacruna plant are blended, basically blended down, or they're broken open in some kind of way to expose or extract the medicines out of the plant. And then they are boiled down, in many cases boiled down, and then from there they are made into what would be a tea, and this tea is known as ayahuasca, right? And so typically it is natively grown in parts of Peru, and I'm going to talk about why I think that's important. And it's important that wherever you experience ayahuasca, you make sure it comes from the native space, and you make sure that a native is actually someone who is administering it to you. And I'll tell you a little bit about my experience here. And so now that I think about it, this video might be a little bit longer than 10 minutes. Yeah. So ayahuasca. So now you know where it is. It's grown native to Peru. It might be grown in some other places. My experience was over 17 days in Peru, 14 days for the ayahuasca ceremony. There was a couple of days of travel on the front and back of the trip itself. So that added up to 17 days. And then from there, we had 7 ceremonies. So essentially a ceremony every 2 to 3 nights for 7 ceremonies total. Now, ayahuasca, and when you are getting ready to partake of ayahuasca, it is not, when people think about a trip, they think about other plant-based medical systems, like and I call these plant-based medical systems because they are medicines just like the other medicines that are built in laboratories, right? And so one of the things I remember going through, preparing to go to Emory School of Medicine for anesthesia, one of the things I remember doing was taking biochemistry. And in the biochemistry course, we actually made pills in the lab. We made aspirin, we made other types of medications. And so it is no wonder that and so understand that medicines are usually chemicals that come together that then create some kind of chain reaction or some kind of reaction in the physical body, giving us the reaction we're looking for in terms of disease management, right? So chemicals that come together to lower the blood pressure, chemicals that come together to balance the blood sugar, right? But these things can be done with natural things as well, right? Herbs and things that grow native to the planet. For example, beets can drop the blood pressure, by several points in less than 10 minutes, right? So there are so many other natural ways. Spirulina, wheatgrass, greens, things like that help lower and keep blood pressure low as well. So there's several ways we know that we can do these with plants. Plants also have the ability to help us access the dormant parts of our mind and open up and expand our higher consciousness. And that is where plant-based medical systems, so they cause the same kinds of reactions in the body, but plant-based medical systems is what we call it, right? Or people say plant-based medicine, but they are still systems when they work together. And so people are used to plant-based systems like shrooms, right? They're used to mushrooms, psilocybin, lion's mane. They're used to these other kinds. They are used to things like marijuana, right? The THC, which is the component of marijuana that causes the hallucinations and the high, so they say, right? But these things can be done. These same effects can happen with things that are natural, like breath work can also give you the same heightened or high effect that you would get from another plant-based medical system, right? So keep these things in mind as I give you the information about ayahuasca. In terms of these things being in terms of their strength, these things are essentially stair stepped, right? And so one of the things I always try to tell people is that ayahuasca is the top of the food chain. So it's the top of the top that's going to give you the experience that you're looking for. So it's definitely not something that you do for fun. I don't know anybody who does ayahuasca for fun, right? It is usually for people who are looking to create or expand their human journey and in a way that allows them to see all of themselves before they make critical life decisions. It's one of the reasons why I decided to do it. So back in 2020, the earlier part of 2020, before quarantine, because I think quarantine happened around between March and April, right? So back in 2020, a girlfriend of mine, shout out to Dope CFO Naomi Granger, lived in Vegas, said she was thinking about doing ayahuasca. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I might need to do that too. And so I started truly looking into it, and then I agreed, yes, we could go. And so we decided to go in February, or we returned to the US at the latter part of February of 2020. I remember when we got back, probably a couple weeks later is when we went into shutdown, right? And so there was a few different things that we did to prepare, and we went to the Temple of the Way of Light, and based in Iquitos, Peru. There are so many different places in the States. There's so many different experiences in the US that say that they do ayahuasca. And I'm not knocking those places, and no disrespect to those places or anything like that. But if you ever go to Peru and see the real experience and the large amounts of teams and people that are needed, even just for a small group of people to facilitate true healing, you would never do one in the US. If you knew the things that ayahuasca, that having this medicine in your system unearths, the traumas and the different things, there's no way you would go take a shot in a room with 50 people. It's insane, because people are reliving the trauma, they're hashing through it. You want smaller groups, and you want a bunch of shamans, and you want people in the space that are constantly clearing the energy so that the facilitation of true healing can happen. So no, this is not something you do for fun. This is something you do to lessen the amount of time you would need to go to a counselor or to go to a psychiatrist, right? Or to get mental health. Now, it's not the end all be all cure, because there's still things you have to work through, but they say a matter of a few doses of ayahuasca will cut 10 years of mental therapy or mental health and wellness, right? It would cut it way down because you're able to expand and see not just the traumas and the things that happen, but you're able to see your entire life on this healed timeline and where you're going to end up. It's beautiful, right? And so if you knew what was waiting on you out here in the fifth or sixth decade of your life, you would understand what happened to you in the first decade and when you were 1 to 10 years old, right? And why you needed that, even though that's what hurt you, and that might have been something that has been traumatizing or challenging to heal. You can now see that, this is why this all makes sense now. And a lot of times you might say, well, why do I need to travel overseas to do that? Well, because the energy of the US is so consumerized and we are inundated with ads and things jarring for our attention. To really pull away to heal is almost impossible in the United States. It's almost impossible. There are healings and things that can be facilitated and that can happen, but very seldom does that actually happen, right? And so I've opened up about this trip when I first got back, but I wanted to kind of take some time and do a video about it as well. And so I am still very close to the owner of the Temple of the Way of Light. He is always like, bring a group, bring a group, bring a group to come and heal. If enough of you want this, comment on this video. And in 2024, we can take a short trip, right? I can't do 17 days. I can't do 21 days. That's a lot, but I am willing to do 10 days and do some 7 to 10 days and then do some ceremonies with you because I don't think I need all of them. So the other thing that I people always go into ayahuasca thinking that it's the plant that's going to serve them. Let me say that again. They go into the experience thinking that it's the plant. I got chills. That it's the plant that's going to serve them. When in reality, you are technically here to serve this plant. The plant should be treated as a higher power or a higher source, which is why I will never do it in a group of people that are just doing it for fun or just trying it for fun. It's kind of disrespectful. In my eyes, y'all, this is just my opinion, just my experience. But having had the full experience, and the way that the people who are native to the land grow this plant, it's grown all throughout the Amazon, and the individuals who do these ceremonies are taught to do these ceremonies from childhood. So from the time they're 3 and 4 years old, they are learning about how to activate the medicine within the human being. They are learning the shamanism behind how to heal people with this medicine. So I would never fly to New York and do some ayahuasca experience with someone who says, "Oh, I trained to be a shaman." I'm not interested. I'm more interested in this shaman who is now 75 years old, who has been doing these ayahuasca experiments, or not experiments, ayahuasca um uh retreats since he was 5 years old. I feel much safer. Maybe it's just me, but I feel much safer knowing that in all of his years of experience and wisdom, he's seen all kind of traumas and all kinds of things come up. He's got me. If I'm losing my stuff, he's got me, right? And he has the ability to heal. And I'm gonna talk to you guys about why I think that is so, because I'm not just trying to like downtrodden. I know people are gifted and they get trained as shamans and things like that. But when I talk to you guys about the things I see with my own eyes, I haven't necessarily seen a lot of Americans trained as shamans do this kind of healing work. I'm sure they exist, but to be able to have this thing done collectively and have the people in the room facilitate an entire holistic healing, you'll see why it just isn't the same. It just isn't the same. The other thing that I'm going to say, and it's the experiment of it. I mean, you can't beat someone who's been doing this since they were 4, right? You can't beat that, and you just trained in your 40s to be a shaman and do ayahuasca trips. No, you haven't seen enough. Not with the stuff that's probably going to come out of me, right? So for me, I trust the natives and where this plant has come from. Now, there are people who go and train under the natives, and it takes them an extended period of time to train, and then they're able to facilitate, but they're never facilitating on their own. There's always a group. So for 20 of us, there were five. For 22 of us, there were five shamans, right? 22 people, five shamans. And then there were 12 other facilitators in the room, meaning they were constantly clearing the energy of the shamans. They were constantly checking on the people in the room. And so they may have had one or two people assigned to just them. And that's outside of the shamans and the people there. We were in a room called the Maloca. And the Maloca, it was kind of this dome shaped building. And it was open, but not open, but it was closed, screens all around. Right outside the Malocas were the baños, or the restrooms, for men and women, right? They were unisex basically. So, right. So the other thing that kind of struck me as odd, but not really. I learned this when I went, because I didn't wear shoes pretty much the entire time I was there. I wore them every now and then, but once I got on the land of the Amazon, I just had no shoes on. One of the things that they helped us realize was that they don't want people to deforest the Amazon because the trees don't really grow back. Underneath the Amazon is not soil, it's sand. So the tree, it's already a marvel that the Amazon exists, and that it is as lush as it is. So and I know parts of the Amazon is vast. So parts of the areas of the Amazon where they live, it's sand. So this is why I could ground every day, meditate throughout the day, and this wasn't a trip where you connected with people like that. A lot of people were there to kind of work on their stuff. So they just kind of, you would do these ceremonies. If people felt like having small talk or talk with you about their experience, they did. And if they did it, they didn't. So people slept, people kind of isolated, people did all kinds of things, because you have to realize it's like you're thrown into therapy, right? And everybody's dealing with their stuff. So this isn't where you're going to be, oh, let's take a bunch of pictures, oh, let's kick it. It just wasn't that kind of party, right? And so you had people who had gone through multiple years of therapy for traumas and things like that. The plant was there. We were there to serve the plant, basically, by saying, answer our call to heal ourselves, basically. And then as you show us, then we can serve humanity better. So it was more like that. And then the other thing is the plant also has to call you. And I think that's what people miss. So when you say, oh, I'm going to kick it with a bunch of friends and do ayahuasca, it's like that plant didn't call any of you guys. And so do you feel led to do this? Or is this something that you're just doing for fun? Because you don't do ayahuasca for fun, not the real way. And so those are the things that kind of think about, right? I went into this, and so the Temple of the Way of Light prepared us. So 2 weeks prior to that, you went on something called a dieta. Anytime you go on an ayahuasca experience, you need to reset your gut so the medicine can actually work. And the way that you do that is with a plant-based or vegan diet. So no animal products. And if you can eat raw during that time, eat raw during that time. Now I was preparing for this in January, since I went in February. I was preparing this for this late January. And in Georgia, it's cold. So I wasn't going to eat raw, but I ate mostly things that were just plant-based, fresh salads, things like that. And you usually do that for 2 weeks. You can do it for longer than that if you want to, but the dieta prepares your body for the medicine and keeps your energy clear. Not only does the dieta concern itself with your food, you also want to pull away from electronic devices, anything that has the ability to shift your energy. There was no sexual or intimate contact with other human beings, because you're opening up your energy for the medicine. Even when you were traveling, you were resting, you were taking care of yourself, you were not getting overwhelmed if something happened to your bags. You didn't worry about any of those things. During this time, I was meditating, praying, and things like that. And the things that I was focusing on when it came to my journal time and things like that was what type of experience I needed to receive from ayahuasca, from Mama Aya is what they call her. And so one of the things that I was really clear on was that if I was going to be there to serve the medicine, I was going to leave my ego at home, right? I wasn't going to take my medical brain, my doctorate degree, all these things that I've seen. I was not going to take that with me, okay, unless I actually needed it. I didn't take those things with me. So my expectation was, I'm going here to receive something. If I received everything that I wanted to receive from Mama Aya, right? And I'm here to serve her, and we're going to do this great exchange. Here are the questions, the things that I want answered. And I probably had about 12 questions. There were 12. I'm sorry, I had about 8 questions. There were 8 different ceremonies. And I said, okay, these are the things I want answered, right? These are the people I want to talk to as well, because you have access to the etheric realm and the spiritual realm, and other people who you haven't had a chance to say goodbye to and things like that. And while I did this, I also wrote an alternative intention. And I said, if for some reason the plant felt like I wasn't ready to receive it in this way, then I told God to cleanse my energy and grant me the ability to, I'm going to try not to cry, to just hold space for everyone else that needed to be healed. That even if I got nothing for myself, that God gave me the strength to hold space for the people in the room who needed it the most. Okay. So I put myself truly in a servant space, and I had the most profound experience in the room of everyone there. And people would ask me, how are you seeing all of this? How do you know all of this? Why is it answering your question and asking mine? And the only thing that I could tell them was because I did not bring my ego with me. I made a list of the things that would benefit me, but I didn't prioritize that. I said, if I'm here for everyone else to hold space, then that's what I'll do, you know. And yes, I spent my money just like everybody else spent their money, right? And so, while getting ready, we had done the dieta. When we got there, they also said, okay, now you're going to do vomitivos. And if you're not familiar with vomitivos, you should be listening for these words for a real ayahuasca experiment. Dieta. Everywhere we went, from the airports in Peru to the restaurants in Peru, there is a section on the menu called the dieta. So everyone knows if you're in town to do this, to do ayahuasca, or it's like the whole culture knows that it needs to assist you in preparing, so that everywhere you travel, there is a dieta portion of the menu, even at the airport. So they know you're not supposed to have eggs or milk, or they say, oh, are you traveling to see Mama Aya? Yes. Okay. This is a dieta portion of our menu. This is how we can prepare these things for you. If you want coffee and tea with no sugar, no cream, we can get those things for you as well. Everyone, everywhere you went, knew that this was the case, right? And they knew that this is the case 2 weeks before your trip, during your trip, and then 2 weeks after your trip. So all while you were going out, everyone knew how you were supposed to eat. While we were away, we got our in the Maloka. You got your room assignments, and then you met in the Maloka, which is a large round area, and everyone had a mat, a bowl for vomiting, that's what it was for, and a roll of toilet paper. And then you were asked to bring a small flashlight that had a red beam on it instead of white, because white will bring people out of their experience. And you were asked, if you needed help, to turn around and shine the red light on the wall behind you, or to blink the light twice, because it was pitch black. You couldn't see anyone, right? And I remember not being, and I traveled with my friend from Nevada, from Vegas, and my sister, who was one of my older sisters in my family. And so the three of us traveled, and I might put a picture of us kind of at the end if I can find it, but I might edit and put a picture of us at the end so you can see it. We had profound experiences, all of us. And so I could hear across the way my sister having her healing experience, and the crying, and not being able to get to her, and not being able to interfere, but to let the work, or let these things kind of work out themselves in her life. And her life changed tremendously when she got back. And so did mine. And so I went to personally get beyond different fears and things that were blocking me in business and how I showed up in the world. Super shy. I'm an introvert's introvert. But look at me on YouTube, right? This is a big deal for me. And ayahuasca is one of the things that help facilitate that. And I know that I'd never be able to do this if it wasn't for that. And so really quickly, just going through the experience, it gave me messages for other people on my team, other students in my school. I had no idea what they were going through or what they were experiencing, and it didn't tell or show me anything about them. It just gave me specific messages for them. And they I gave them those messages on a Zoom call that I held for everyone who wanted to hear about the experience when I got back. And so while I was there during the experience or whatever, um with the vomitivos. Vomitivos is essentially the drinking of a liquid to fill the belly to the point where it will expunge or it will expunge or expel all of the gastric contents. Okay. And you did this several times. So when we got there, they brought us in and they gave us cool towels because we had walked 30 minutes through the Amazon, right? And we went during not during the rainy season, but a little bit between seasons. So the Amazonian River was high enough for us to take a boat halfway through, and then which was 30 minutes or so. And then we walked through the Amazon for 30 minutes. There were people who, and you always, when you go to Peru, take a backpack, right? So you're going to get one of those long camping backpacks. Those backpacks you can get from Amazon, but those backpacks are also they are also measured based on the size of your lumbar, so your back. So you're going to get the ones that have a lumbar support around the waist. These are tall backpacks. You don't just get a generic one, and this isn't a book bag you order at school or college. It's a traveling backpack, and so it's very, very long, and you can fit several weeks of clothing in it. And then they never tell you, never bring rolling luggage. You never bring like a hard case. You don't bring that kind of stuff to something that has an Amazon experience for a lot of different reasons I'm not going to get into. You definitely don't want to bring your laptop and things like that because it's so moist there. Those things will mold and they will be destroyed by the time you get there. And so they taught you how to pack properly so that your things weren't destroyed. I brought a lot of things with me and I wore the same things over and over again. Just being in my spiritual journey, I didn't change clothes a lot. I showered every day, but I didn't change clothes a lot. And then everything in my backpack, clothing wise, I wore one or two. I had one or two outfits that I kept. Everything else I donated to the people there because God just led me to shoes, clothes, anyone who could fit it, they could have it. The other thing was that your clothing and things like that stayed moist. You're not in, we weren't in a building that had air conditioning and things like that. So you're kind of just open to the elements. You had screens around your hut, and then you had screens around a screen thing that draped over your bed to keep mosquitoes off of you during the night. And then of course you wore things, you wore your spray to keep those things off, right? But and then you had a compost toilet. So this was like real. There's nothing glamping about this kind of experience, but it was amazing, right? And I would do it again in a heartbeat. And so the other thing to keep in mind is that while we were there, the vomotivos is it was over basically you're sitting on, it's like a short cliff, but it's still a cliff. You're not going to jump down in there. And what you're doing is the people come and they sit like a basket by you, a bucket. I can only describe it as a bucket. And it's full of warm lemongrass tea that is slightly sweet. Okay. And it's so aromatic. It's so warm to your system. It's so, you can feel the healing of it in your gut. But that's not what it's for. It's for you to chug, and then take your fingers and stick them all the way back, and then you're going to expulse. You're going to get everything out of your stomach, and you can do that 3 times. Okay. And so it's a line of people behind you waiting. Maybe they had like maybe 3 or 4 seats of us sitting on the cliff, and then a few people behind us waiting. And don't worry, you're not going to throw up on your feet. With the way this was set up, it's just going down into like this pit. It kind of just goes back into the land. And no, you don't see anything that anybody else vomited because most people were eating broth and very light things at this point during their dieta. They don't have food like that in their system, right? When I tell you it was the most healing experience, a lot of people who would purge would just cry. Like I wouldn't do it any other way. I would definitely do the vomitivo. And people say, I wouldn't want to do that. But it's not just What did they teach us? It's not just like you vomiting. Yep. It's not just that. It's a letting go. Like most people don't ever heave, or it's like all of your energy expels old energy and you just, it comes up and you just let it go. And that truly prepares you to take the medicine in. You're completely, I can't describe it, but you're so much more open after that happens. But you got to be a trooper to do that, right? So vomitivos, I did it 3 times, 3 rounds, chug, 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 drink the tea, right? And then, let it all out. And I could not do that at home. I just couldn't. There's something about the camaraderie that's around you, and everybody's like, "Go, you can do this, you can do this," and then someone being there to hold you after this is all done and saying, "You got this." Your healing is, it's time for your healing, and so that's why you don't do this. This isn't fun. Like it's work. It is a work, right? And it's preparing you to do a work in the planet as well. And so at Vomitivo, you get prepared, you got your journal, you do all these things. They have mental health counselors there, they have shamans there. You have one-on-one sessions. You have 2 sessions with them one-on-one in the Maloka. You set up your time, and then they basically say, let's go over why you're here. We got your application. You've dealt with this type of abuse. You've had, like in my case, it was molestation, it was sexual assault, it was, all of the things that I've dealt with kind of in my life, emotional abuse, mental abuse, things like that, and they were like, okay, how are you healing? What else do we need? Do you need a stronger dose? Do you, like, they were on it one-on-one. You don't get that in these large groups where you go. And they know what's in the room. They know, they have a one-on-one thing with you. So they know the depth of the trauma that's in the room, and they can facilitate the healing. And so they shift, you can tell they shifted the strength of the medicine to, because everybody's drinking out of the same thing, and they're drinking it in a little cup that they give you. So you got your own cup, but they blend it and put it in this bottle. Everyone's drinking the same strength. And so they have to determine how strong or what they need to be, or how to pray over this medicine before they give it. And how do you know that if you haven't done one-on-ones, right? This is different from people kind of in a room taking a shot. It's not that kind of party, right? And so, or taking a pill. It's no. Don't ever do it that way, right? Because the medicine can, well, it probably won't even activate, because they have to then, they while we took the medicine, and while it kind of upsets your stomach a little bit, a lot of people vomited from that as well. So they will vomit the medicine right back up. For some people, it came out the opposite way. So they had to run out. And that's why the bathrooms are so close. But everybody's experience was different. Everybody had a different outcome based on what they needed. But the facilitators were top notch, and that was at Temple of the Way of Light in Iquitos, Peru. I'll link their stuff below just in case you want to go, because they have things all the time. I wouldn't recommend anybody else but them. Okay. There's one place in Florida that after I vetted them, they come a very, very close second. But if I were going to go in the States and I couldn't go abroad, it would be that place in Florida, because they had tons of shamans. They had all kinds of things. They had ayahuasca just for law enforcement, or ayahuasca just for government or leaders. So they had it niched to where they're facilitating healing for, and these people need healing, right? And so they had facilitating healing for these kinds of people. Okay, this video is going long. All right, so let me go ahead and finish this up. So during the time there, we were in the Maloka. I had my one-on-one. I did my vomitivos, did my dieta, stuck to that, did my journaling every night. The 3 of us that went, we shared a room together. You don't have to share. You could be on your own. They split husband and wife up because there's supposed to be no sexual contact or intimate contact during this time. Things like that. People were there from all over the world. Very few of us were there from the US. A lot of people from the UK, Africa, China, New Zealand, Australia. Lots of people, came to Peru for this. So very, very, very diverse group. One of the things they did make clear was that they rarely see Black people, American Black people. And so this is why, after they learned about what I did with Legacy and with the federal government, they were like, oh my God, you got to bring a group. African Americans have such deeply rooted trauma. And this is why a lot of Black men need healing. They haven't done the healing work. I can tell it now because I've gone through tremendous amounts of healing work to be the person that I am. And so I can sense trauma a mile away, and I can tell when somebody hasn't done the healing work. They've moved on, but their habits, their ways, their beliefs, and their DNA has not. And so the healing still has to happen, and they have to be able to trust that that can happen. It's still taboo in a lot of African American households. I can't speak to anybody else's because I'm just one color, right? So I can't speak to anybody else's experience. But if you are on this channel and you are non-African American in any way, please put your comments below. I'd love to hear about the traumas and things that you grow up with, because there are a lot of different traumas in our culture that is deeply rooted in our DNA. Hurt people, and it continues throughout family lineages, believe it or not. And so these are things that we need to be kind of aware of, and people are not talking about these things enough, but we're making life decisions based on what happened to us. If we could heal and be whole, we'd probably make a completely different decision. And so that's what this is about. It's about really seeing all of you. And so with my experience, when I took the medicine the first night, I was just like, I'm just here to hold space. I'm grateful to be in this space. I'm grateful to be aware of everyone having a healing experience. I'm just grateful to be here, and I'm just here to hold space. And it was like, how can I describe it? It was like, I could see, y'all, let me try to put this into words. I could see, it's so vivid in my mind. Like I dream it over and over and over again all the time. I could see, because they smoked a lot of tobacco, plant tobacco, so it doesn't smell like cigarettes, and cigarettes are laced with chemicals, so it's not the same. They smoked tobacco in a pipe, and they used it to blow the smoke over the shamans. So we're sitting in a large circle, right? So big that I can't see the person across from me. I can see the people next to me. They're close, but they're not that close. They've still got quite a bit of space between us. Once the medicine kind of took hold, that was when I was just kind of laying down because my stomach started to kind of gripe. And then from there, I saw the young man, the shaman, slid over and sat in front of me, because they sing these tunes to activate the medicine in us. And when he slid over to sit in front of me and start to sing, I raised up like off of my mat. I tried to get up to greet him, and I couldn't get up. And so he started this, him or her, I don't know if it was a guy or a girl, because they were both. And once they started to sing, my body just kind of did this. It was almost like, I can't describe it, almost like this kundalini. Like my body just rose up off of the mat, like on its own, right? And you could tell the medicine was taking effect. And then while he was singing, while the person was singing, because they're short people, they're smaller people. And so while he was singing, and they were sitting Indian style, like cross leg in front of me. And so I sat up on the mat. It sat me up on the mat, and I got cross leg and sat in front of him. And my body just started doing this swaying. And I was just like, I'm here to hold space. I'm here to hold space. Like, I'm just here for having a good, you're not having a good time, but I'm just here to hold space. I saw the person slide over behind him, the shaman slide over behind him, and he struck his match to light his tobacco. I saw the shaman slide over behind him, and he struck the match to light his tobacco. And the spark from the match, I saw the spark from the match, the little bit of light from it, because the room is pitch black. And it was like the sky just opened up, and all of this sacred geometry showed up. And I was like, oh my God. All of these signs and symbols, and it was like almost like a parade, like she was welcoming me, right? Like, oh no, we're happy to have you here, right? It was so like mind blowing. I can't really put it into words. But all of this sacred geometry and all of these things showed up, like in what would be the ceiling, because the ceiling was closed, right? And so once all of this started happening, and I kind of looked up and was like, not in a daze or a trance, because you're not. I'm still very much aware. If somebody were to tap me on my shoulder and say, hey, could you slide over? I could do that. You're very coherent. Because that's the other thing. People think that plant systems make you high. They do not. They lower the barrier between you and the etheric realm. So if you're high out of your mind, that's not what these plants are. That's not even what marijuana is designed to do, right? That's not how these plant systems work, right? And so we want to keep this in mind when we're looking at people's experiences and when we're having experiences ourselves. And so all of this sacred geometry showed up. And then from there, the plant, I could hear the plant telling me, you haven't, you've been living. She said, you've been living, but you came to earth to feel. You haven't been feeling. And when she said this, like in my head, I heard it. When she said this, every emotion came to me. I started crying. I started laughing. I got sad. I got happy. I got angry. I got, like, every emotion you could think of started running through me. And with these emotions, in kind of like in the, not necessarily in the sky, but like in my mind, it flashed all of these events, from funerals to weddings to graduations to births, to all of these different events that were happening over my life that were giving me the opportunity to feel. And because I had been in survival mode, I was so disconnected, right? I hadn't been connecting to feel. And it was because of the abuse. It was because I was afraid to get close to people. It was because I didn't know how to love. It was because I didn't understand self-love. All of those different things, right? And so basically she was saying, you haven't been feeling, and you being, your soul came to earth on vacation. It's all the things she revealed to me. You came to earth because you've been working so hard throughout the universe, and you came here on vacation because you say, you know, I want to go feel some things. And although you might not like the despair, this, man, let me tell you, this thing was so deep, y'all. Listen, although you don't like the pain of this, although you don't like the despair of this is a part of the feeling of your healing. I couldn't describe it any other way. And after she showed me that, then she said, let me show you who you really are. And when I tell you, I felt my soul, I can't say, I can't describe it any other way. I felt like my soul had folded down into this body. There was this essence that came from me. Right? Excuse me. There was this essence that just unfolded from me. All of me just unfolded. And I remember asking her, why does it look so dark? And she was like, you basically, like, you are the universe. Everything comes from the dark. Everything comes from the deep. Everything comes from this. This is what you are, you know. And it was, even now, like, it gives me chills. Even when I wake up at 3 a.m. and they say, once ayahuasca is active in your spirit, man, it's active in you for life. That's why it's imperative to do it the right way. And I can wake up and in meditation, I can feel it. I can feel the vibe of the medicine still activated within me. And this is years later. I did this in 2020, right? It's 2023. I can still feel it. I can still hear the singing. I can still feel the experience, right? And so it's so critical, y'all, to be able to let yourself have these kinds of experiences, because that's my journey. Yours is probably completely different. Who you are and what you see is probably completely different. There are people who wanted to visit loved ones, they wanted to visit ancestors, and I did some of that too on some later nights. But on the first night, I was like, you know, I have questions, but I'm here to hold space. And she was like, you haven't been feeling. We can't do anything until you learn how to feel, because that's the only reason you came to this lifetime. You're on vacation here. You've done so much work throughout the universe. There's no other species that exist that can feel the way the human feels. No other species exists that can feel emotions the way the human being does. You haven't been feeling, and that's the only reason you came here. Now, you might not like all of the feelings that you encounter, but you need to know how they play into everything that you are, because then your expansiveness will move on to teach this in other universes, in other pockets, in other ways. And I mean, and this year, I enrolled in the school for the spiritually gifted so that I can continue to expand on my gifts, the things that I am gifted to do. But I wouldn't have even known all of who I was had I not involved a plant-based medical system. My PhD in metaphysics um will be based around healing, right? And activating light energy with plant-based medical systems. That's what my paper is going to be, my dissertation is going to be about, right? I already have my master's, but that's what my dissertation is going to be about. You've got to be willing to see all of yourself. Now, when I came back, my business took off. Now that you already know how how this thing is really popping, right? You don't get scared anymore. You just go for it. You like this is what we're doing. If I don't want to do it anymore, I don't want to do that anymore. If I want to do that, okay, let me start that. And you're tied. You're no longer tied to what people, places, and things think, feel, look like. Um you're no longer bound to those kinds of things anymore. And so I always tell people who are leaders to go do ayahuasca, even regular people who don't know what they would do with the experience, to go and do ayahuasca. Okay, it's important. The other thing to be aware of is once you return, when it's done, your energy is wide open. It is the worst time to date. It is because you're going to pick up, it's like you getting your car washed and then people dumping cow manure, a dump truck of cow manure on your car. You do not know how shitty, excuse my language, people's energy is until yours has been cleared. And you understand the vastness of the universe. You are quick with who you cut off. You are quick with who you see people's bullshit. And you see that they can't fool you anymore. You understand? And so I always tell people, don't go if you don't want to see, because you're going to see when you come back. You're going to see who they end up being. You're going to see so much that it's going to make you make decisions based on who you truly are. And I remember in the experience on one of the last nights that we were there, the plant was like, do you still want to be human? You know, how do you fit all of this into that? How do you fit all of this essence into that? Why would you want to be human? They're so small, compared to the vastness of the universe. Why would you want to be? And they're so fragile. They're so soft. Why would you want to be human, right? And I remember saying, because you can always change your reality and stay. You can do all these other things, stay out of your mind or whatever. And I remember telling the plant, I owe, right, a universal debt to the being Jeremiah, who is my son. And I said, I must go back because I understand who that person is, who that being is. So I must go back. It was almost as if we agreed, because it was like, we need you. We need your power elsewhere. We need your help elsewhere throughout the universe. Why would you go back and help the humans? And I was just like, I have to. This is my work. This is the work that I'm doing, that I've chosen to do with my human experiences here, and my lives here. And so it was just beautiful. That's all I can say. It was beautiful. It was expansive, and I would absolutely do it again. Just to get more insight. And now that I'm much more keenly aware of my spiritual gifts, and how to cleanse and clear and do all of these things, I'm much, 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 much more aware. Beyond that, I think, like I said, I'm looking at facilitating a group to go, women over 40, who are ready for their sequel, the second part of their life, and what they need to let go of and how to facilitate rapid transformation for them. So that's what I'm looking at doing. So hit me in the comments if you came this far. Thank you so much for watching. That was just a snippet of the experience. I got to talk to my sisters who had passed on. I got to talk to my dad, who had passed on. I got to talk to a lot of different people, and have them say, we are cheering for you. You're continuing our work. It was just, oh God, y'all. It just warmed my heart to have the experience. And it was still rough. And I had people in the US that I said, if I text you in the middle of the night, if I'm having a rough time, can I text you? And I had people here holding space for me. So this wasn't something I just kind of jumped up and did. I prepped people and I prepped myself. And then when I got back, the only other thing I'll say was the most challenging. After you've seen the vastness of the universe in this way, it's really challenging to submit yourself back into society. It's really challenging to then go to the store or to the gym or wherever and see people just doing stupid stuff. And it's like their minds are so small, and you have to be aware of that. And so we went into quarantine, right? Like literally a week later, we went into quarantine. And I was like, yes, I don't have to worry about talking to people because, oh my God, people are away. You hear me? Much better now, though. But it did take other plant-based medical systems and plant-based eating to get me back on track and to reground and reacclimate myself to Mother Earth, right? So keep that in mind as well. So listen, if you come this far, thank you so much for watching. I do hope that if we do an ayahuasca experiment, you would go with us. I would always make sure that you guys are safe and that we have more than enough people who are very, very good at what they do that are there to facilitate things. I will say one more thing. When I tried to reach out to touch the shaman, there was this massive wind, like a rushing wind, pushing my hands back. And the power that's coming off of them. And I tried it several times and it kept pushing me back, right? I tried it several times. I wasn't able to get close to them or hug them until the end of the trip. So many things happened. People that had allergies, my sister had allergies from a lot of different foods, and all these hives and things came up on her, but we weren't eating anything that she was allergic to. And so in the middle of the night, they took her down. The other young lady that was with us walked with her with a flashlight through the Amazon to take us down to the shaman's home. And the shamans mixed all of the things that we would take as vitamins. We went to take those daily to take care of ourselves. It was just, it was amazing. And so the shamans, when they saw the reaction, they said, it's the medicine, letting you let go of all the things that have made you allergic to all these things. She's allergic to so many things. And they were like, it's the medicine making you let go. And so, she was just not feeling good. And so they got in a circle around her, and one of the shamans kind of sat behind her and like just held her. He held her. They started singing and wiping this kind of prayer oil over her, or what would be like Florida water healing stuff over her. And singing just to calm the plant back down. And they said I wasn't there, but the people who were there that experienced it said that the hives went away in real time. We use EpiPens, we use all kind of crap here in the US when we have such a deep connection, y'all, to the planet that it's worth exploring. That's all I can say. It's worth opening our eyes and seeing everything that God has put here for us to use and saying, how can I use that for me and for other people, right? I hope you got something great out of this video. If you haven't already yet, please take the opportunity to subscribe to this video. Kind of something like this.